What if I told you there was a mode of public transit that had frequencies better than once per minute, was entirely grade separated, and was dirt cheap to build? Only about half the cost of the average BRT and a tenth of most rail systems. Would you say we should build more of it? What's the catch? Well, today we're going to explore urban gondolas. What's so great about them? What indeed is the catch? And what are the top 5 cities that are building them best? Welcome to Transit World, videos on all things transportation with a focus on the developing world. So first, let's define what we're talking about. There's a bunch of technical differences between gondolas and cable cars, aerial trams, cable-propelled transit, ropeways, but honestly, I think those distinctions are boring. I'm grouping them all together. We're just going to call them gondolas in this video. Basically, we're simply talking about any cabin that is suspended in the air by one or more cables that move from station to station. And I'm only going to be looking at systems that are primarily used for transportation, not for tourism. So you're not going to see your favorite ski resorts getting a mention. Urban gondola systems have really come into be in the past 20 years, with growth really taken off around 2014. The total miles still pale in comparison to global metro or BRT lines. Even just looking at the Metro City Metro, that's got more total miles than the entire global urban gondola systems. But the growth trajectory is impressive. So are these going to take off and rival other modes of transit at some point? Well, gondolas are really good at fulfilling many of the things that people look for in a transit system. They're direct. In fact, it's almost impossible not to be direct given the physics of suspended cables. They're frequent, often arriving every 15 seconds or better. And they're really cheap to build. You don't really need a lot of infrastructure, a couple of pylons, cables, cabins. The footprint on the ground is limited. You just need space for occasional supports and stations, so you can squeeze these into pretty built-up areas. And more than any other kind of transport, you don't really need existing right-of-ways. Gondolas are also cheap and safe to operate because they're relatively well automated. It's one of the few modes of transport that's almost impossible not to automate. It's almost like an elevator or set of escalators. And of course, gondolas are great when you have steep terrain. In fact, this is quite literally the best possible mode to use for steep terrain because they're designed originally to tackle mountains while keeping the cabs level and comfortable. So what's not to like? Well, the biggest thing is that they have terrible throughput. The cabins are slow and small, averaging about 10 to 15 miles an hour with no more than 10 to 15 people. So they have about half or even less of the throughput of most BRT systems and only a very small fraction of what you can get with heavy rail. You kind of get what you pay for. And they're further slowed because they're susceptible to collateral delays. One slow cabin slows down everyone on the system, often in both directions. Gondolas are also a little less accessible than other modes of transport because they really don't stop. So it's harder to get on, and it's harder and more important to keep balance inside once you do. These systems are also at the mercy of the weather in ways other transit isn't. You can't operate in high winds or lightning or even a heavy storm. And sometimes gondolas can be uncomfortable. They can sway. It's a really bad place to be stuck with somebody you feel unsafe with. And for some people with fears of heights, they just don't want to be on them, period. There's also privacy issues for people on the ground, especially those that live directly under the line. So with all that said, let's look at the top 5 cities that are building these best. So I came up with a list of every single gondola or adjacent system in the world. Then I started filtering out systems that cater mostly towards tourists, and I'm also only looking at systems with more than 2 stops. I'm not going to count a system that just serves one purpose, like spanning a river or connecting an island or getting to the peak of a mountain. I want to see a system that comprises more of a network. Then I ranked what was left based on capacity, which I saw as a direct measure of throughput and frequency, number of stations, which is a measure of access, and then I gave some bonus points for additional factors that made these gondolas a good choice for the city, such as particularly steep terrain or how well it served as part of the overall network, not just a spur or gimmick for one neighborhood. And I also gave some extra points if there was little or no other mass transit. So here we go. Number 5, Ankara, Turkey. Ankara? Either way, this system's great. It connects the hilly towns that surround the city into the metro system. Fun fact, I also believe it's the only one on this list with heated cabins. After 2015 expansion, this was the longest gondola on the entire Eurasian continent at 3.2 kilometers. That's a bit crazy to me that this is the longest in Eurasia, home to 70% of human population, while still accounting for only a few percentage of the global average. So where are all the gondolas? Well, the top 1 through 4 are going to reveal that pretty quickly. Number 4, Bogota. Get comfortable with Latin America because we're staying here for the rest of the list. Just like in Ankara, this system serves as an extension into the hills to connect to the trunk lines down in the flatlands. And just as well or better than any other on the list, TransMiCable does a great job cutting down on travel time compared to the road network. Let's look at this example here. If you want to go from Tunal Intermodal Station up to the Mirador de Paradiso, that's about a 30-minute drive or a 40-minute bus ride, but it's only 11 minutes on the gondola. Number 3, staying in Colombia, MetroCable in Medellin. This was the original system that really introduced the world to the idea that urban gondolas could serve as a real line of transit and function as more than just a gimmick or a way to connect one specific isolated spot. MetroCable makes up a good chunk of the total transit system and again connects really well with the trunk lines in flatter areas of the city. Before we get to the top 2, just a quick reminder to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the video. We've also got these fantastic and very stylish TransitWorld t-shirts, which you can pick up if you become a member on my Patreon page. A couple of honorable mentions: Caracas MetroCable, which was modeled after the system in Medellin and is a huge source of pride for the city because it has a bunch of social importance for the neighborhoods that connects to it, and it boasts some engineering ingenuity. Apparently it's the first gondola to have 2 90-degree turns, which is impressive, I guess. The system was also part of a larger social redevelopment project, and so the stations are built to include other land uses, such as social spaces, clinics, markets. Caracas also got a mention in my BRT video. I would love to come visit to check out their transport. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. An honorable mention to Algeria in general as well. There was no particular city that had an impressive system, but the country as a whole has multiple cities that made the list. Side note, I feel like I need to include more content on the Middle East and North Africa. Let me know if you have any particular cities in the region that you think are worth covering. All right, back to the top 5. Let's look at number 2, which is Mexico City. I'm going to combine the MexiCable and Cablebus systems, which, just like their BRT system, is divided jurisdictionally between the city itself and the surrounding state of Mexico. This would have ranked only 3rd, but it just opened a brand new line, which pushes it up to the number 2 spot. Much of the global growth in the gondola industry since the pandemic has actually come from Mexico City. This is a great tool for the job getting into the hills that surround the city, but I do think some parts of some lines operate in areas where the populations are maybe a little too high and the terrain is a little too flat to be a perfect fit for gondolas. And the number 1 city, you might be able to guess this one, La Paz, Bolivia. This is the highest altitude city in the world. It's got a bunch of hills, a perfect fit for gondola, and the government saw that too. The key to the system is the hills along the periphery of the city, but in particular the huge elevation change between downtown and the sprawling neighborhood of El Alto. If you're going from this activity hub in El Alto to downtown, it's about a 13-kilometer drive that usually takes about 25 minutes, or it's just an 11-minute one-seat gondola ride. To me, this system is the clear GOAT. La Paz is the only on this list that doesn't already have another mass transit system. And the gondolas aren't just a spur or feeder into a larger system, they are the system. By the way, this is also one of the few systems in the entire world that has a 100% fare box recovery ratio. Just saying. And this system has been so influential that this really was the success story that started the gondola frenzy when they completed it in 2014. All right, so should everybody just go out and build a bunch of gondolas? Well, I think you should only really build them if you're in a spot that has a lot of hills, only has a moderate demand of transport, has moderate distances to cover, has relatively calm weather, and then it also helps if you have bad and or difficult to build roads and rail infrastructure in place. So this isn't going to be a great fit for most places in major cities, but there are plenty of cities and districts within cities where gondolas can be the right tool for the job. Many more than those that currently have gondolas, especially in Latin America and parts of Asia. They will never replace rail or buses, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't use them a lot more than we do now. That's all I've got for today. Please remember to like and subscribe.